Hi, and welcome to the 8th and last video of the PowerShell Beginner Project series. So in this video, we will be taking a look at the account password expiry alert. So what this basically means is we're going to be checking Active Directory for all the accounts that have passwords that are able to expire, and then the ones that expire in 14 days or less, we're going to go ahead and send an email to the user saying that their password expires in X amount of days. So in my case, because my users don't actually have email addresses, there will be a slight tweak to this, as I will just be sending my test email, uh, the email that we're sending, but you can definitely, I will be covering how to do this using the email of the Active Directory users. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started here. So some of the first things that I want to show you guys here is we're just going to be starting with a blank slate. So let me just delete this here, and we are going to be starting with a blank account expiring passwords.ps1. So what we have here is my default password policy. The maximum password age is 10 days. Now, I don't recommend this at all. This is just for testing purposes so I can show you guys. And then we also have a secondary password policy that you guys have seen in the last video here, our test password policy that I apply to anyone in the management group. And that one has the max password age of 30 days. So those are going to be kind of needed later on in the video when we take a look at that. And the two users that we're going to be playing with today are going to be the test user 1 and test user 2 down here. So test user 1 is part of that management group, and test user 2 is not. So if we go, it's just part of domain users. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to grab the users that have passwords that are expiring. So we know that if we do a get AD user, and let's just look at test user 2 for now on the server of jacked.ca, and let's look at all the properties here. So if we look at this here, we are going to see tons of properties like always. And here we have a few properties that we're going to want to look at. The password expired is false. The password last set, this is the date of the last password that was set. Password expires is set to false. So, and then we know that the account is also enabled. That I kind of just assume that the account's enabled. So what we want to do is we just want to get all the Active Directory user accounts that are enabled that don't have a passwords do not expire, and that the go back to here, that the password never expires is set to false, and that the password expired is actually false. Because if the password is expired, we don't need to send a person an email saying that their password is expired. They're going to get that notification when they log in. They will be prompted to change their password, but it's always handy to let the users know slightly beforehand when their passwords are going to expire so they can change them ahead of time and be a little bit more prepared for that change. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do a get AD user, and then we're going to do a filter star and properties star on the server of jacked.ca. So this is going to get me all the users in my domain right now with all the properties. But we don't want that. We only want where object, and then we're going to open and close curly brackets here. We only want the users that are enabled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this in parentheses. So $ underscore dot enabled. And you can also do where object enabled is equal to true, but we're just going to be using the $_ dot enabled. And we're going to be doing dash equals to true here. Or you can do the true value here. So this is only going to get the user accounts that are set to true. And we're going to do another open and close parentheses here. We are going to want to grab only the accounts that have the password never expires is set to false. So we're going to do the $_ password never expires equals false. And then there's one last one that we had said, which is going to be an and then the parentheses, and that is going to be the password expired is equal to false. So we want to make sure that the password expired is set to false, password never expires is set to false, and that the account is enabled. So if we actually run this here, we are going to see that, let's just actually store this into users here. And let's just do a users, and we're just going to pipe that to select name, just so we can get a little bit of an easier view. So here we only have 2 users that are enabled, that have passwords that are going to expire, that have not expired already. All right, so that is perfect. And then what we're going to want to do now is we are going to want to get the domain's default, the default max password age. So the way that we can do that is by doing get AD default domain password policy. So if we just run this, this will actually get the default domain password policy. So here we can see the lockout threshold, which is 5. And we can see that the max password age is 10. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to store that in a variable called max, max password age, and that's going to be equal to parentheses get AD default domain password policy dot max password age. So if we just run that here, we're going to see that we only get the 10 days, and it is already formatted in the lovely PowerShell time format. So that is perfect. So we have our users, we have our max password age. Now the only thing left to do is really to figure out if that password is within our expiry date. So we've said that we want to only notify users after like within the 14 days of expiry. So let's also store that in a variable here. So we're going to say how many days before notify, and we are going to set that equal to 14. It's a very, very long variable name. You could probably shorten that and really kind of store it as however you want. And then we're going to have a for each $user in $users, and we're going to have that open and close curly brackets. So in here, this is where we're going to be doing a lot of our calculations. So what I like to do, especially for this script, because we're going to need it, we're going to want to grab the user's name because we're going to be sending them an email, so it's good to refer them as their actual name. So seeing that my AD is a little weird, we are going to be doing a bracket here, a variable wrapper. We're going to do user dot given name. Let me actually just run this here so we can get the dot notations, and then another variable wrapper, and we're going to do user dot surname. So this is going to be the name. We are going to grab their email, so we're just going to do email equals user dot email address. You could do user dot user principal name as well. It really depends on if your user principal name is also their email address, but it's probably a safer bet to use the dot email address. And then we're going to have the password set on, and this is going to be the user last password last set. So we can actually, yeah, we're just going to do password set on. And then we are going to go ahead and grab the password policy of that user. Now, you can actually tell what password policy is applied on a user using a very specific commandlet again. And that commandlet is called get-ad user resultant password policy. And you can pass that an identity. So let's look at our test user one. And of course, we should always be putting the server in here. So let's just put jacked.ca. So here we can see that the password policy for this user, because it is in the management group, we have the max password age as being 30 days. If we look at test user 2, we can see that get resultant 80 password, it comes up as nothing. And this is because this user is actually not assigned to a specific password policy. So in this case, we would actually want to use that default domain password policy because that is what's going to be applied on that user. So using this logic, we are going to want to create a variable called password policy, and we are going to set that equal to, we're going to wrap get ad user resultant password policy. We're going to pass in the identity of user.sam account name for the server of jacked.ca. And what we are going to do is that's going to be it because we want the entire password policy. And then what we're going to do is, we've seen this trick before, is we're going to do if the password policy. So if the password policy exists, what we are going to do is we're going to change the max password age, and we are going to set that to password policy dot max password age. Perfect. So if we have a password policy assigned directly to the user, we are going to be grabbing that max age of the password. Now, what we want to do is let's go ahead and let's just see what we have so far. So let's just do a write output here. We're going to have our name and then a dash max password age, and we're going to have password set on. So let's just see what this gives us. So here we have test user. We have the 30 days. And then we are going to have that the password is set on April 19th, and test receiver. For some reason, we also got 30 days here. So let me just make sure that this is working properly. The max password age is set to 30, but for some reason is that test user should not still get that. So let's see what could be going on. So let's just see here. Password policy, max password age. So let's just do a write output. And I'm just going to put I'm in here. So this is how I'm going to troubleshoot it. So we do get the I'm in for the test user, which is perfectly fine. But the test receiver should not be getting that. So let's see here. Okay, so I do see we're just overwriting it, and then basically we are just constantly reusing that max password age. So what we're going to do here is we are going to do a if password policy, and we're going to do an else here, and we are going to set the max password age again. So now if we look at this, we have the test user as 30 days and test receiver, which is our test user 2, as 10 days. So that is perfect. So I can just remove this here. We just forgot our little else statement, which could definitely get us on a pretty bad time. Now, in theory, we don't really need this variable in this point. So that is okay. So once we have our max password age, what we want to find out is we want to find out what is the expiry date of our password. So let's create a variable here called expiry date. And we're going to set that equal to password set on plus the max password age. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do another dash, and we're going to have our expiry date here. And if we go ahead and look at that, so here we can see that the passwords expire after 30 days and after 10 days. So that is perfect. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a today, and we're going to set that equal to just get date. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable called days left, and we're going to set that to a new dash time span. So we're going to be creating a time span, and we're going to start that time span at today, and we're going to end that time span on the expiry date. So it's going to get the time between today and the expiry date. So if we actually just look at what that gives us here, this will give us a full breakdown of days, hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds, and total days. So what we probably want, we just want the days. That's all we really care about. Perfect. So what we're going to do now is we are going to check if the days left is less than the amount of days that we want to notify on, because we only want to notify the users again once that amount of days is less than 14. So if days left is less than or less than equals to the how many days before notify. Now, in theory, the only user that should be triggering that is going to be the test receiver. So let's put that right output in here. Let's run that again just to make sure that we get that correct. And we do. Perfect. So then what we're going to want to do here is we want to also be able to tell the user how many days they have left. Now, the thing is, your message is going to be slightly different based on if it has more than 1 day or if it has less than 1 day, which would be 0 days, which would be meaning today. So what we want to do is we want to do a if days left is greater or equal to 1. We're going to go ahead, open and close curly brackets, and we're going to do a custom message is going to be equal to in days left days. Otherwise, it is going to be a custom message is going to be just today. All right, and then so that should be good. So that we have our custom message. And what we can say here is just our right output. We can just test it out. Is your password expires, and then custom message. So if we run this here, we're going to get test receiver, your password expires in 9 days, which is perfect. So what we want to do now is we want to send that in an email to the user. So we can actually go ahead and just erase this right output here. We're going to be replacing that. So what we're going to be doing at the beginning of this script here, we are going to be once again importing our super useful mail module, which is the send mail kit message. I will be posting a link to that video again in the description, as well as the link to the GitHub to that module. So this will help you replace the send mail message commandlet in PowerShell. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to do an import module. We're just going to import that module here. Perfect. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create all of our variables for that email. So we're going to import our mail account, which is going to be the import CLI XML. We're going to be specifying the path, and we are going to be pointing that to my outlook.xml. And again, for this part here, we are importing that password file. So if we actually just run this here, we are going to see that it brings in my account, my Outlook account. So it has my password stored in that file. This way I can bring in that in these videos. You guys do not see my password. So I actually have a video on how to use that commandlet that I will also be posting down in the description below. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, I definitely highly recommend it. You can hide your passwords that way in your scripts, so you don't have to have your passwords visible in clear text. And then we're going to have our mail port here, which is going to be 587. We're going to have our mail SMTP server, which is going to be equal to smtp-mail.outlook.com. We're going to have our mail from, and that is going to be equal to mail account.username. And we're going to have our mail to. Now, in theory, you would not need this in this script because you would be sending it to the email address here. But because my users do not have email addresses, because it is a fully tested domain and I don't have an email server, I'm going to be sending it to this email instead. But the way that you would do this is exactly the same. So here, what we're going to do at the end is we're going to create our subject, and we're going to set that equal to your password expires, and then we're going to make custom message here. So that's going to be the subject. So the user is going to be able to clearly see what this email is about. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a body here. And what we're going to make it a little bit nicer than what we've been doing in the past, because this is going to be something that the user sees, right? So we're going to use some HTML. So we're going to do some paragraph tags. I'm not going to go too deep into the HTML code. This is going to be a very, very basic email template. You guys can definitely make yours look a lot nicer with some HTML. If you guys don't know HTML, it is pretty simple to learn. I would probably recommend like W3 Schools, or if there's enough need or want for it, I can definitely make a few videos on it as well to make some nicer reports. So here we're just going to have a hi, and we're going to put the name in there with a little comma. So we're just greeting the user. Then all we're going to be doing is just, we're going to be doing the body. We're just going to do a plus equals here. You don't technically have to do this. I just really would hate to have a huge line. So typically I would separate this into multiple lines and just have different paragraph tags everywhere. But seeing that this email will be pretty short, I'm just going to do it in one line anyways. So we're going to have another set of paragraph tags here. And we're just going to say your password expires. And then we're going to have our custom message. Then we're going to have another set of paragraph tags. And inside of those, we are going to say thanks. And then after that, we're going to have another set of paragraph tags for another paragraph. And we are just going to say JackedProgrammer. But here you would probably say like IT services or something. So here we have a nice body. We have a nice subject. All we need to do now is send mail kit message. We are going to do the from as the mail from. In the to, now here you would put in email. I will put in mail to, because again, I do not have email addresses for the users. We're going to have our SMTP server, which is going to be our mail SMTP server, our port, which is going to be our mail port, our credential, which is going to be our mail account. And then we're going to have our subject, which is just going to be our subject, our body, which is going to be our body. And then what we need to do now is, because we have HTML, we're going to have to add the parameters body as HTML. So it'll actually take in those tags. So let's go ahead and let's actually send this here. And it seems that we have failed. So let me just make sure that everything is typed in properly here. SMTP dot mail test JackedProgrammer.ca. So that seems to be good here. The mail port is 587. That seems to be mail account username. So the mail from is set up properly. It seems to all be good. Just see if it could be our issue with maybe our commandlet itself. So let me just hopefully it's not Outlook that is having some issues. Oh, and there it is. I have STMP-mail. It is SMTP-mail. So that would be the reason why. It's a very simple typo there. All right, so the email did get sent off. So if we actually go look in our emails here, we're going to say, hi, test receiver. Your password expires in 9 days. So that's perfect. So what if we would want to trigger our test user 1 here? So what we're going to do is we're just going to go into our administrative center. We're just going to slightly modify our password policy here. We're going to set it to 5 days. So anyone in that management group is now going to expire in 5 days. So if we run this once again, we're going to see we get 1 email, we get 2 emails, which is perfect. And if we go in here, our test user, your password expires in 4 days. Again, because the password policy is only 5 days, and the password was set a couple days, just a few hours ago, so it expires in 4 days now. And then our test receiver, which has the default password policy, so that one expires in 9 days. So that would be how you would send that in. And as you guys saw, the formatting of the email, we have quite a nice formatting. There are definitely ways to make it look a lot better. You can use some header tags, some colors. There's a lot of options here that you can do. But that would be the very, very basic way of being able to alert your users of passwords expiring. And then you can always just edit the amount of days that you want to have before they get notified. So this code will be in my GitHub, and that link to the GitHub will be down in the description below. If you guys have any questions or comments about this, just let me know down below. And then hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and also make sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when the next video comes out. And I will see you guys on the next video.